Hello, and welcome to Back Through the Lens, where two film school friends talk about movies through the haze of nostalgia. The good, the bad, and the ones that aren't quite how we remember them. I'm your host, Rachel, and with me is my co host, Joe. Today's topic Season 1 Wrap Up.
In today's episode, Rachel and I will talk about similar themes and other connections we've encountered in Season 1. We will also reveal our favorite episodes, which picks stood out to us, and some of our funny moments that didn't quite make the cut. So let us pull back the curtain as we talk about the good, the bad, and the things that didn't go quite the way we had expected.
Okay.
Be back!
You're back, yeah.
Sort of.
I feel like we just started this. I can't believe Season 1 is done already.
Yeah, that was quick, considering, all the build-up from trials and errors and whatnot, and then we just kind of hit the green light and ran with it.
Yeah, it didn't really feel quick when all of our technology was breaking, but now that we're at the end of it, I think my biggest concern for future seasons is how I'm going to make this work with summer vacation, but we'll find out.
We'll have a guest speaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, while we're at it, let's segue into your human creature. There's a part in our notes where we have how often your human creature that lives with you walked in at the wrong time during these movies.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Let me find that.
Oh, yeah. I got grandma notes.
Yeah. So when we were making lists of things we wanted to talk about with this wrap up, I included scenes that traumatized my son, all by accident, all just me trying to watch these movies for season one and him just happening to walk in at bad times. From the beginning, Ghostbusters 2, our very first episode, I had paused the movie because my son walked in and it was paused on the scene where the heads are on spikes in the tunnel with the slime. Probably the creepiest scene in all of Ghostbusters 2.
Probably the creepiest scene in Ghostbusters 1 or 2. Like
Yeah,
he
like
walked in
not,
on like the scariest part of the franchise.
yeah, because it's not like silly creepy or fun creepy. It's just scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Winston's down there and Winston's like freaking out, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And
like,
then there's
rightfully
literal
so.
like ghost heads on spikes.
Right. And yeah, it was that moment where I had been thinking like maybe my son could watch Ghostbusters because again, I think of it as, silly. The ghosts are silly, whatever. No, some of the ghosts are scary, like that. So my son has not watched Ghostbusters yet.
I was probably your son's age when I watched it too, and it was on TV, probably unedited, but that was of a different time.
Yeah, I don't think I was too much older than him. He's 8. I don't think I was too much older than him when I started watching it, but I think at his age, I was possibly watching X-Files already, which
Oh
like I
yeah,
probably shouldn't have been watching at that age, to be fair. He's very sensitive. So I'm gonna wait a little bit for scary things.
man, if we get to like a fall season, and I know I'm picking horror movies, you better like just lock yourself in your closet with your iPad so he can't bust in.
Oh, trust me, I've thought about this. Obviously, I do my best to watch things when he's not around, but yeah, if I'm ever using the big TV, as we say, meaning watching something in the living room and not like on my tablet, um, it's hard to keep him out of the room. And
Right.
then I don't know, it's hard to watch these at a time where he's not around because he's always around. Like he lives here. Summer break's going to be interesting.
Oof. I'll try to pick
Mhm.
some better movies, I guess.
No, it's fine. We'll figure it out. I'll just yeah, like you said, lock myself in my closet. It really, for me, the issue is more so when I have the movie on DVD, I'm gonna watch it in the living room where the DVD player is. Things that I have to rent or that are streaming, I would prefer to not watch them on my tablet, but I can, and that gives me a little more privacy. But that leads me to the next one. The first gladiator fight in Gladiator for our Oscar Best Picture winner episode.
Yeah.
That was a day that he was home from school. I can't remember if he was homesick, if it was a snow day. He was not supposed to be home. And I really had to watch Gladiator. So I was in the other room watching it on my tablet. And that first Gladiator fight where we kind of realize what they've all gotten into.
When they're chained up in pairs, right?
They're chained up in pairs
Okay.
when they're waiting to be released out into the arena. And there's
Oh,
that
yeah.
guy, yeah, there's that guy on the other side of the door, like
Oh,
swinging
yes.
his like mace or whatever you call it. And like as they run out, like these people are getting hit in the face with the maces
Yeah.
swinging. And you see in a close up, you see it connect with someone's face. And it's like obviously very gory.
Oh, yeah.
Gladiators gory, but they don't shy away from this. And I was watching this in a different room on my tablet. Son came in because he needed something. I paused it in a panic because,
You don't
violence
want him
on
to
the
see.
screen. Yeah,
Right.
it paused right on that guy getting hit in the face with the
Of course it
mace and
did.
the blood. And yeah, of course it did. Of course it did.
That's awesome. I mean, probably horrible, but it's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, yeah. I guess it's funny now because he doesn't seem to have any lasting effects.
It's just what
But
are the
like,
chances that it was right at that moment,
well, right. And also, it's so funny to me looking back that I keep pausing things because, oh no, the kid walked into the room. But that doesn't help because then, like, the horrible thing is just frozen on screen.
Yeah.
So,
Versus like
I've
that quick shot of him getting hit in the face, maybe he would have not seen it.
exactly, yeah.
You're making it worse by making it better.
I might have said this on our episode when we actually talked about Gladiator, but I was watching a historical documentary, like a big fat nerd, about like ancient Rome, but I can't remember specifically what the topic was, but they were discussing how people would be, killed during these games and everyone would go watch and it was like a family affair.
Yeah.
And the narrator of the documentary made a comment about life didn't have a lot of meaning in ancient Rome. And I was like, oh, no kidding.
No shit.
Yeah.
Well, see, that should make you feel better. You accidentally paused it from the movie for your son to see, but you did not take him to an actual gladiator fight. So, progress.
Progress. As if I did before.
Well, I mean, we as in the humans.
Lower level. Lower level traumatization. Hercules, when we did our Disney Renaissance, when Herc is like, I think he's inside the Hydra and he like cuts
Yeah.
its neck off from
Yeah.
the inside and you see like the green, I guess it's like green blood, like the Hydra blood is green. Watching all these Disney movies with him because you think, why not watch this Disney movie with your child? And then he's like, oh no, this is scary. Oh no, it's gross. I'm scared. It's funny though, because, having a really sensitive kid, he has been very affected by the fact that like someone's parent is always dead in
Hmm.
Disney movies. And like basically during the pandemic when like Disney Plus came out, we got a deal on Disney Plus and we were like, yeah, that's fine. Like we're inside anyway, right? Let's like watch all the Disney movies with our kid. And he was always like, where's their mom? Where's their dad? Like, and watching The Lion King for the first time, you see Mufasa die. And he was like, oh
Right.
gosh.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me because like we watched these as kids and it was just like,
It just was
you just
there.
like accepted it, I
Yeah.
guess. You didn't think too much of it.
Did
And
not.
for him, he really was like horrified because I think that was the first time he realized like, because he was really little. He was like 3 or 4. He was like, he realized for the first time like people's parents could die when you're still young.
That's fair, I
So
guess. Yeah.
like thanks Disney.
We'll get back to that point.
Yep.
Probably
This might be something that comes up again.
Yeah. Today and probably anytime we watch Disney, if we pick anything Disney.
Gosh, yeah.
It's funny how I guess I've noticed it. How do you not notice it?
Mhm.
And like to your point, it's in your face in Lion King. I think that might be the first time, at least in like a Disney animated movie that I can think of
Mhm.
off the cuff right now, that you see a parent die.
Right.
It's like, with Aladdin, it's just the Sultan. There's no Mrs. Sultan, so to speak.
Right, yeah, there's just like the absence.
Yeah. But that
Yeah.
one, like, just straight up gets trampled.
Yeah, Lion King really like drove it home, I feel.
Oh,
I
yeah.
still remember when Lion King came out and it was so popular. I was explaining the movie to my grandma and she was like horrified that this was a Disney movie.
Huh.
because like his dad died in front of him and the uncle was responsible. And she was like, oh my God, this is Disney? Like, what? Okay, so my final scene that traumatized my kid, but in a completely different way. When we did The Wedding Singer, my deleted scene that was on my DVD
Hmm.
that you apparently didn't have.
Not that I recall, no.
Yeah, Robbie was discussing, I guess like getting back into dating or something with his elderly neighbor, the one who he's doing the singing lessons with. And she starts asking him if he is embarrassed about his penis size.
Hmm.
And they get into this whole discussion about that. And Robbie is trying to end the conversation, it just keeps going. Yeah, I was kind of okay with my son hanging out a little bit while I was watching it because like I've seen this a lot of times. I I don't know. I'm personally not too concerned about him hearing swear words because we talk about it and just please don't say those words because you'll get in trouble at school. But yeah, wasn't expecting this whole deleted scene just constantly using the word penis. And I remember my husband walking by and being like, well, if he has questions about this later, I'm making you explain it to him. I'm like, yeah, I get that. Because it's my fault.
Whoops.
Yeah, luckily I think he had gotten bored with The Wedding Singer and was just like doing something else.
Fair.
Yeah, but I was horrified because I was just as the scene kept going, I was like, oh my God, what is going on? Because again, like part of why I felt okay with him like being in the room for some of it was because I knew when there were maybe parts I wouldn't want him to see. And
Right.
this was completely unexpected to me.
Yeah. I still don't know why that scene exists on your DVD and not mine, but that's fine.
I don't know. It wasn't really like it didn't add much to it. Like I get why it was a deleted scene.
Right.
Things that we did not expect when we started this. It's funny you mention how this is gonna go when we do like fall and Halloween stuff. My son did sneak downstairs once when my husband and I were watching Halloween, the
Ooh.
first one. Yeah. We didn't know he was down here. We were in the living room. The way that our staircase is, he could creep down the stairs from upstairs and you wouldn't see him until he's like in the room.
Hmm.
And I guess he was sort of just hanging out because he wanted to see what we were doing. And I didn't know he was there. So now we'll say things like, if you sneak downstairs, you have to tell us because, like, sometimes we watch things that are scary and you might not be able to sleep, but that's going to be your own fault because, like, we waited
Right.
till you went to bed to watch this. So now, if he sneaks out of bed on like a Friday or Saturday night where we'd be up watching something, he knocks on the wall to like alert us to his presence and says, can I come down? Are you watching something scary?
My answer would always be yes, I'm watching something
Yeah,
scary. Even if I
everything's
wasn't. Go
always
back to bed.
scary. Yeah.
Watching the Golden Girls. It's so scary.
We're trying to work our way through Shogun right now, and I mean, to be fair, like I don't want him walking in during Shogun because we want to trying to watch that. We want to catch up on Yellow Jackets. I don't want him walking in on any of this, so
Right.
I don't know how to segue into anything else.
You started talking about our orphanage slash single parent of the main character theory.
Oh
You had
yeah.
mentioned that with the Disney movies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was kind of a running. We talked about this before the podcast started recording, and you've told me the story before about your son and Lion King, and how come there's only one parent? And are you gonna die? And all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, oh, that's in all the Disney movies, and we kind of realized that as adults. And we've had a conversation before about we noticed it had to, but like it didn't affect us as kids then.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously Hercules and Aladdin, both our picks. Aladdin has no parents to speak of,
Yeah.
and Jasmine has just her father.
Mm-hmm.
And Hercules, I guess, technically has his parents, but gets like
He can't
adopted.
really be with his parents.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so he does. He is adopted by the farmers.
which is better than like Aladdin's situation.
Yes. So those are obvious, but then like kind of reflecting back, a lot of our picks seem to have that kind of thematic one parent or no parents for these main characters. Wizard of Oz, Dorothy lives on a farm with her aunt and uncle. Don't know what happened to her parents.
Oh yeah, that's never really explained.
Yeah. Star Wars New Hope. Obviously, Luke again lives with aunt and uncle.
Hmm.
We know later on in other movies and whatnot what happened to his parents, but for that snapshot of the
Hmm.
one movie, he's the little orphan boy living with his other relatives. Wedding singer, Robbie's an
There's a
orphan.
whole there's a whole plot point and a whole song about him
Yeah,
being an orphan.
yeah, yeah. Beyond the Lights,
Hmm.
Noni is just her and her mom.
Yeah.
At least as far as we know. I don't know. The dad might not be dead, but he's not around.
Yeah, I feel like her mom mentions at some point that dad just split.
Kind of also Boys in the Hood. He has both his parents, but he's never living with both at the same time. So he's in a single parent home.
Hmm.
Luckily, he still has them. And at the beginning, we see him visiting his dad on the weekends until he lives with his dad, and then presumably was seeing his mom on the weekends until he got older and high school and football and college applications and working at the mall. But he had both.
Yeah. I got the impression that maybe toward like the later half of the movie, his relationship with his mom wasn't as close. Like he
Yeah.
really hadn't been around to visit.
Hmm. And then it's kind of not a main character, but it's in like our first pick,
Hmm.
Dana in Ghostbusters 2. She is a single parent.
Hmm.
Doesn't really quite affect the story as much as like Aladdin or Hercules, but just wanted to point it
Right.
out there.
Yeah. All these broken homes.
Hmm. It's like they don't know how to. I wouldn't say they don't know how to write conflict. That's a little bold statement there, but it just seems like that's part of all the conflict. Or I mean, it doesn't even
Yeah, it's a
come up in Wizard of
catalyst.
Oz. You don't have parents. It's like, oh, the tornado came and whisked her away, but it has nothing to do with not having parents. Just she doesn't have parents.
Yeah. Yeah. So for something like that, something like Star Wars, I don't feel like it's used so much for conflict.
Hmm.
I feel like The Wedding Singer was probably the most ridiculous example of it because it's like he's always wanted to get married since he was this age. That's when mom and dad died. And it's like you could also just really want to get married to the person you're with without your
Yeah,
parents having died.
maybe they were inferring that he just wanted to like get married and start a family, but didn't say that second part.
Sure. I just personally feel like him being left at the altar would probably be like rough enough.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then when he's beaten up by Glenn later in the movie, doesn't he call him like a poor singing orphan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I had forgotten about that was used as a reason or whatever
Hmm.
until we rewatched it, and then having to take notes on it. I don't think I ever realized how much it was brought up as like a reason he really, really wanted to get married.
Yeah. Well, it's probably also another reason besides not being a successful rock star that he was when he was younger. I think another reason of him living in his sister's basement. Like I felt
Oh,
like
maybe.
when their parents died, he might have been the younger of the two. It seems like, and just never grew out of the house. I don't know.
Maybe. On a different note, or on a slightly related note, Danny Green and Kill the Irishman, just his children leave him, and he never mentions them again.
Yeah, almost like a reverse orphanage. Like
Hmm.
he has a wife and kids, but because his life of crime kind of leads them to leave him.
Hmm.
Um, I guess kind of the same vein. Gladiator, his family gets taken from him.
Mm,
Yeah.
I don't like thinking about that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh,
Moving on.
we did forget You've Got Mail though. Kathleen Kelly's mom died, and
Hmm.
she obviously feels very lonely,
That's
and
right.
mentions missing her mom a lot. Doesn't mention a dad, but that it kind of seemed like her mom was her only family.
Well, mom's owned the bookstore,
Hmm.
so
That's true.
good catch.
And Laura's dad dies in High Fidelity,
Yeah.
but he's not really a character.
No,
So
it's just kind of a catalyst to her and Rob getting back together. I wouldn't put that in the same like boat as like Beyond the Lights or Aladdin, I guess.
yeah, that's true. I would
Because,
not
like,
either.
can't name every movie if one of their parents die, but I feel like it's more of a, especially with the Disney movies, it's definitely more of a plot point or a reason for conflict.
We did have this running theme, it seemed, with money versus security. And I think we really started talking about this a lot with The Wedding Singer.
Correct.
The whole idea that, Robbie was being told by multiple people that Julia is with Glenn because he has a lot of money. And there are some hard feelings there too that Robbie has over her supposedly choosing to be with this guy because of money, because of wealth. And the kind of understanding that you and I had about like money's important though. Like people want to be able to pay their bills, they want to feel secure. I could appreciate in a way Robbie's ex Linda not wanting to live in her sister-in-law's basement if she
Right.
had married Robbie. But yeah, that difference between does this person have enough money that you guys are going to have a roof over your head versus like Glenn buying, I don't know, CD players or whatever was flashy in the
Yeah.
80s.
Right. Um, and it's tough because there's like, there shouldn't be that fine of a line, but sometimes I feel like there is,
hmm
because you could, in theory, be married to Robbie and live in your sister's basement and be happy if, it was actual
hmm
real love. But also, I guess, I don't know what she was doing for a living, but, double income. So you guys together can get an apartment. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good point because she was just working as a waitress because she had just moved to town,
Hmm.
supposedly the town where all her family lives.
No, I meant, Robbie's Linda, his
Oh,
first,
yeah, we don't know what
yeah,
she was doing.
right. But it's, I want to live in your sister's basement. Well, who says you had to? I don't know. Pull your income
Yeah,
in.
probably things you should have talked about before you got married. Just
Things I should have mentioned yesterday.
yeah. But in a similar vein, we see this in The Quiet Man, where from the very beginning, someone is telling Sean, right? John Wayne's character. Is it Sean?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Sean.
Okay. Someone is telling him not to go after Mary Kate because she's poor. Her family's very poor.
Yeah, which was weird.
Yeah.
It's like,
And like,
she's beautiful, but she's poor. Leave her alone.
but he
What the?
really like, he's really like, you don't want to get involved with that. She's poor.
Yeah,
But
I still think it
also,
was kind of a way to deter him away from
yes.
her because her brother's an ass and like controlling, and
hmm
I don't know. It's like, yeah, you don't want to mess with any of that. You don't want. It wasn't. I don't think it was just a poor thing, and that's what they literally said. But the vibe I got was, at least that first encounter at the church, he's like, you just
Yes.
ignore her. And I think maybe the poor thing was tr- just a reason, I guess. But it
hmm
does come up in the rest of the movie how she has her possessions and
hmm
her dowry and this money that was hers that her brother has, and
hmm
then Sean's like, we don't need it. We're good. I got a house. I bought a house. We got money. He's got his boxing money.
Yeah.
But so they had security.
Yeah. And with her, it's more, yes, Sean can offer her financial security and maybe a little bit more because it's a big deal that he buys her that carriage, right? Or
Yeah.
is it a carriage? He doesn't buy her a car, does he?
No, it was a carriage. It had
Is
a
it
horn
like a
though.
really nice carriage? Okay.
Yeah.
But for her, it's more the principle of the thing. It's for her, it's pride. But then at the end of it all, she gets her dowry paid and they just throw it in the fire because it's a matter of principle.
That just really proves you don't need the money, it's just security. Yeah.
I
I
guess,
mean,
yeah.
I would take the money. Like, you live in a
Yeah,
shack.
they do live in a shack.
That's fine. That's fine.
Um,
Everything's fine.
Moulin Rouge, obviously, money is a big plot point because it's the whole reason why Satine and Christian have to keep their romance a secret because the Duke, who has quote unquote bought Satine,
Right.
um, is financing the show. He has the deed to the Moulin Rouge, so if anything goes wrong, like everyone's screwed. And everyone's jobs are in Satine's hands. But also the idea that Christian doesn't really seem to worry about money.
Well, he can always just go back home to dad, it seems like.
That is what it seems like, yes, 'cause, he's very much like, "We just need love," and she's like, "No, people have to eat." Like,
Right.
Satine's had a harder life than him. It is very clear.
Yeah, he went there to be a bohemian and to have these ideals. These other people still have them, but they also are like starving and living on the streets or in a big group in like a
Yeah.
small apartment or whatever. He's just almost like he's there on holiday. And these people that are
Yeah.
trying, like, they're like, maybe they're like, okay, we're artists and we're trying to make it work and we're
Mhm.
literally starving artists. And he's like, but this is fun.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, luckily he is a good writer and he can just, copyright laws didn't exist back then. He can just sing everyone else's lyrics and everyone's happy.
Everyone who hadn't been born yet.
Yeah,
Aladdin, obviously, but
hmm
probably most glaringly when Jasmine first sneaks out of the palace and doesn't understand she has to pay for the apple.
Right. Yeah.
And
What?
and the whole argument that leads to, if you think about it too hard, where maybe she and her dad are really horrible rulers because maybe they really don't understand what people are dealing with on the streets.
Or at least her. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, it is if you overthink about it. Yeah, it's who knows. I get the impression she doesn't leave the palace, and I feel like that might be whatever happened to her mom. The Sultan's like kind of overprotective, so she doesn't
Mhm.
go outside the walls. Doesn't make it better or worse, I guess, but maybe the lack of knowledge is because she is kind of, I don't want to say a prisoner in that lush palace, but she can't
But
leave
yeah.
or doesn't. They don't want her to leave.
Or maybe she would have had some sort of like economics course before she actually became a ruler. Or it doesn't
Well,
matter because her husband would.
well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm. Beyond the Lights, we talked about Noni and I guess the links she and her mom, but maybe more so her mom, went to for her to build this career, and the idea of I think especially how bad in a sense her mom wants it because she knows what it was like to have literally nothing. But again, the idea of wealth versus having enough to just be comfortable and like pay your bills.
yeah. They go from not really having that to
Hmm.
beyond, but her mom, I think, wants to just keep pushing it forward. And I guess the thing we talked about it during the episode, it's kind of like, well, she probably remembers what it was like and wants to add more security on top of her security, I guess.
Hmm.
And Noni might not remember what it was like because she was so young
Hmm.
and also wasn't raising a little Noni. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Like that was my assumption too, that it hit her mom harder because she had to try to figure things out for her and her little kid
right.
with no money. And Noni being a kid at the time, like it's a different experience.
hmm
Might be a good time to bring us to our other theme of women not being in charge of their own decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy that there's less in this topic than the other two, I guess. But it's still, yeah, it kind of popped up a few times.
Hmm. So, Noni, again, I guess more so in her own career, she doesn't seem to be making her own decisions. She's not in charge of like her look, her whole persona, like her professional persona. Her mom very much seems to be making the decisions, but then also her scuzzy boyfriend, Machine
hmm
Gun Kelly, seems to kind of be leading a lot of these like songs she's on, a lot of their performance decisions, and of course her label, which I guess they all get their comeuppance at the end. But you could make an argument that most of this movie is just Noni wants to sing Blackbird,
That is
and no one will
basically
let
it.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, her mom dictates what she looks like, what she eats, where she goes. The label obviously dictates what she sings, what she records. He even set up her and MGK being together.
Yeah. Obviously, Jasmine in Aladdin.
Hmm.
There's, I mean, big plot point of the movie is that they're trying to marry her off. Her dad seems to be the one kind of making these decisions. Also, Jafar gets involved with that with obviously different intentions, but it still is everyone kind of making decisions that are going to heavily impact Jasmine without her being a part of the decision making. She says that line about, "You're all standing around making decisions for me or deciding my future, and I'm not here," when Prince Ali first comes in.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Aladdin in disguise and Jafar and the Sultan kind of all arguing
Hmm.
who is good enough to marry Jasmine. She's like, hello,
Yeah.
none of you,
Yeah, none
none
of
of you are
you.
good, and you're so old.
Satine and Moulin Rouge. Slightly different situation, right? Because it's all wrapped up in money, and apparently everyone's jobs are wrapped up in Satine now, and poor decision making through multiple people. Everything ends up on Satine's shoulders, but she kind of gets like sold to the Duke. I don't know if she's fully aware of this. I know that she, at least at first, is aware that he's a client. I don't know if she realizes she's been like given to him, like in perpetuity. Can't just go live her life with Christian because she has to save everyone's jobs. And also, she doesn't know she has a terminal illness because they don't tell her.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. So
Yeah.
in a weird way, like not being in charge of that because you don't know the doctor, the owner
Hmm.
of the Moulin Rouge, and the head mistress lady backstage, like all have this secret, and it's like, oh, we'll tell her later. Like, why?
No, they're just like, she shouldn't know.
Right.
It's like, okay.
He'll just
Oh.
fall from a swing again. It's fine.
Mary Kate and the Quiet Man, this whole issue with her dowry, the idea that, she couldn't get married to Sean in the first place because her brother said no.
Right.
The idea that the townsfolk have to set up this whole thing for this whole like fake romance for her brother to fall into so that he will let Mary Kate go.
It's kind of like The Wedding Singer in a way, because you know Linda didn't want to marry Robbie and live in his sister's basement, and then they convinced the Squire and the
Hmm.
Quiet Man to let her marry Sean to get her out of the house. So the
Hmm.
I forget the lady's name, but the one that owned the
Oh, that
house,
like rich widow.
the widow, yeah, the widow.
Hmm.
She didn't want to move into a house with another woman in there. That's the lie they told them. So
Right.
it's kind of similar there. It's like, all right, someone needs to get out so we can get married.
Hmm. But then also the whole like horrific scene where Sean is like dragging Mary Kate back when she tries to leave him or whatever, and he throws her at her brother and is like, "Take her back."
Yeah,
Like, this woman has like no agency. Like she's just being tossed around to whatever like man can provide for her. Like no wonder she's mad. I don't know.
right. You didn't love the 10-minute sequence of Ford dragging this poor actress around.
Here's a good stick for you to beat her with.
Yeah, I mean, you need a good stick to beat your wife with. You can't go get a flimsy twig.
Oopsie. There is probably some argument to be made in other picks of ours where women maybe don't have as much agency. Like maybe Kathleen Kelly in You've Got Mail because Tom Hanks discovers the truth about his pen
Mm,
pal before she does, and he kind
yeah,
of orchestrates that whole ending.
the ending, the blind date, which he didn't know until he saw her in the window, but
Hmm.
still had that knowledge that she did not.
Right.
Hmm. I mean, and then the whole rest of the movie, obviously.
I don't know if we could throw past lives in here because you could argue it was not Nora's choice to immigrate to Canada, but I mean, it was her parents. But it sets up the whole course of events that
Yeah,
we see the rest of the movie. much to a lesser extent if you're gonna.
Yeah, I feel like besides being a child and moving when your parents move, which
Yeah.
I don't think you don't have the voice. You're not an adult. You're literally someone's taking care of you. But the rest of the movie, I feel like she gets what she wants as far as like her career and what she does, and she's a hard worker and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
you know, what award are you going after next?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if I would count that like moving because your parents moved to give you a better life. I don't know if I would count that. I mean, I see what you're saying. I see like her life had
If you want to
changed, but
stretch it,
I guess. Mm,
maybe you could argue that Nora's parents ruined Hae Sung's life.
Jesus. I mean, again, kind of a stretch, but okay. I mean, I'm not here to debunk any personal theories.
Kind of on a different level, and this is not about female characters, but I feel like I got the same sense when I was watching Boys in the Hood that like there were these other people kind of making decisions about the outside world around these boys that affected their lives or what they thought
Mm,
was possible. And I mean, you see that the most with Ricky, that he and is it Trey?
hmm.
Yeah, he and Trey are just kind of like minding their own business, going to the store, and these other people decide they're going to shoot Ricky. For what
Yeah,
reason? I'm still not entirely sure.
whole
But
like
like,
scuffle at the street party.
right. But yeah, you like to think you have your own agency and that you're making decisions that are going to lead you somewhere. And then someone else decided something, and like Trey loses his friend.
Hmm.
Ricky's kid doesn't have a dad anymore. Obviously, like Ricky's hopes and dreams are over of going to college and playing football. Just,
Well, that also leads to eventual death of Doughboy.
yeah, that too. And just the idea that, like I said, you're, yes, to a lot of things, like you are in control of your own life, but
Hmm.
someone else made a reckless decision and it changed everyone's lives around Ricky.
All right, if we're doing stretches here, I got a good one for you.
Okay,
Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz,
explain.
the tornado
Yes.
swooped her up,
Yep.
took all of her ability to make any decisions back on the farm. Now she has to be a pawn of war between Glinda and the witch and Oz. Like, oh,
Oh, Lord.
I didn't ask for these shoes to be put on my feet. Now I gotta walk. You can't give me a ride in your pink bubble. I gotta walk all the way to Emerald City.
I'm actually down with this. Yes, I'm down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't
Minding her
think
own
that my,
business, tornado
yeah.
shows up.
Is she minding her own business though? You could argue that it's like a moral like punishment for running away.
Right. Well, they're gonna put her dog down, so
Oh, that's true.
she was kind of saving, kind of a. If you want to speak like morals, I think she was trying to rescue Toto.
Well, no, yeah, I get that, but like I don't know. I feel like at a certain time in movies you could never show like anything like bad going
Mm,
unpunished, and
sure. Yeah.
I don't think my Boys in the Hood thing was a stretch though. It's just the gender is different.
No, but
I'm just saying they're outside forces.
right. I was more thinking of some of the other movies,
Past
but
lives was a stretch. I get that.
yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll accept that. That was a stretch.
Because she's such like a, I feel like a strong-willed woman in that movie.
She really is. She's
Yeah.
like probably one of my favorite characters of this season because she absolutely is like laser focused on what she wants and
Yeah.
she goes after it. Yeah, I like Nora. Please watch Past Lives if you haven't yet. On a completely lighter note, we had two movies that involve dragging redheads around that somehow also involve money.
How is that a lighter note?
I just talked about Ricky getting killed. How is this not later?
Well, okay, but
But also because this is ridiculous.
yeah.
Were you there for The Quiet Man? It's ridiculous.
Yes, half of the
um,
movie is just her being dragged from city to farm, and then the fight from farm to city. That's like half the movie.
yep. She gets dragged by her husband, thrown back at her brother. Money is thrown at her or whatever. The money is thrown in the fire. She's back to being happily married. The end.
Done.
Um, Moulin Rouge, obviously, Satine metaphorically is getting like pulled in different directions, but then also toward the end, when Christian kind of has his breakdown after she dumps him, he's dragging her around the theater at the end of the play, yelling that he's here to pay his whore and throws money
Yeah.
at her. And she's like on the ground crying. That was really it, though. Just weird. It happened twice in one season.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, kind of silly, but I feel like the Moulin Rouge one hit a little harder. That was definitely a punch to the gut. The Quiet Man is it's just because of the length and like her falling over multiple times and like the townspeople being involved. Just it was more ridiculous and I dare I say funny. I don't think it's supposed to be, but
I
it
don't
definitely
think
couldn't
people
take it
can.
seriously.
Yeah, I don't think you can understand what we mean when we say it's so unserious unless you've seen it.
Yeah.
It's the whole tone of it too. Like
Mm.
it the townspeople, the music, like it's very much played as a silly thing, whereas Moulin Rouge is framed as more dramatic and everyone's crying in Moulin Rouge. It's different.
Yeah.
In The Quiet Man, they're offering Sean like tips on how to beat his wife when he gets home, so it's like a thing they all do. And to that note, we had some color theory. We had some
Yeah. Yeah.
red and blue themes throughout some of the movies, mostly Moulin Rouge. It's so funny to me because you had made a comment during our discussion that the movie was very blue. And I always thought of it as being red, like the set design being red. And obviously it is, but there is so much use of blue to like juxtapose that
Yeah.
I don't think I really picked up on until you said it.
All the skies, any like sequence they have where they have like a backdrop is like deep blue, but it's
Mhm.
to make Satine pop because she's always red hair, red lips, sometimes a red
Mhm.
dress. That one cool shot I talked about where he's going to go back to Moulin Rouge to win her over or get her back or whatever, and
Mhm.
it's all dark blue. The sky is a little lighter blue, but the Moulin Rouge is obviously red, and that pops out.
Mhm. And I think he's kind of filmed with like a blue filter or something
I
when
think
he's
so.
like
Yeah.
sad.
Hmm.
And obviously then when like Satine's spending time with the Duke, we get dark, dark blue.
The Matrix, you don't get it as much in the cinematography, but obviously the pill choice, the red and blue pill, and it comes up more in conversation throughout the rest of the movie. But it's,
Hmm.
I mean, you can't mention red and blue in the season and not talk about that. I would
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah. And like you said, it's not necessarily a through line. And obviously the production design, it's so different than that. But the red pill, blue pill thing has endured as like a
Hmm.
pop culture thing for so
Yeah,
long. And on a smaller example, obviously Mary Kate in The Quiet Man is a redhead. They dress her in red and blue for whatever reason, but very much makes her stand apart from everyone else's like neutral brown and green tones,
yeah,
particularly the scene where we first see her, like, and
yeah.
Sean apparently falls for her.
While she's herding the sheep.
Hmm.
Just thought of this, but also Wizard of Oz. We're talking about costuming.
Hmm. Oh, yeah.
Dorothy's blue dress and the red slippers.
Of course.
Of
Yeah.
course.
How do we not think of the red slippers? But you bring up The Wizard of Oz with our red and blue. Did you want to mention your Wizard of Oz theme that you had noticed?
Did we mention the green? Or we did it in the episode, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I guess we should mention before we get into that I just personally found it very funny that both of our Irish picks focus so much on the color green just from such a stereotypical like standpoint. Obviously Danny Green in To Kill the Irishman, his last name is Green. He has to like paint everything green when he takes over as union leader. Doesn't he have a green Cadillac?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure
And
does.
sure does. And in The Quiet Man, they filmed in Ireland. It's very lush and green to begin with, but he makes a point to paint his new house green. And someone in the town even remarks that, like, no one would think to do that.
Right.
Or no one would think to use green, just an
You,
American.
you silly American man.
Silly American. Hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
if my entire like neighborhood was lush green, I think that'd be the last color I would pick. Like, let's pick something that stands out a little bit. Let's
yeah,
see, you
that's a
wanted to
good
be
point.
like camouflage. I don't know.
Although he had a like stone cottage that was sort of on a patch of dirt.
Hmm.
So maybe in his defense, on his property, it did stand out.
Yeah, look at all this mud I own. I guess with Danny Green, maybe so there's the Irish thing,
Mhm.
but his last name
Yeah.
maybe it was like a calling card, or like he's trying to like market himself. Like you see something green, you know it's Danny the Irishman coming for you. I don't know.
Yes. Oh my gosh. But yeah, not as nice of a segue, maybe, because we had to stop and talk about the green. But
That's okay.
why don't you get into your Wizard of Oz references?
Well, so in episode 1, you had mentioned that you don't particularly love that movie, which is fine. I take no offense. I didn't create the movie, but you had made a point. It's like it's inescapable because of just the iconography. It's in pop culture, and so I kind of made a little mental note to try to see if what movies we pick, what does it show us as far as like, are we making these references or not? And some of these might be a little stretch, but some of them I personally feel like are either directly related or maybe a little like wink to it. Example of a wink I would think is Ghostbusters 2, when Oscar gets kidnapped by the ghost when he's on the ledge, his first baby
Hmm.
steps. The ghost is this little old lady from like what looks like the 20s era, between what she's wearing and whatnot, on a bicycle, like
Hmm.
flying to go get Oscar. And I just cannot not think of the beginning of Wizard of Oz, or even just the transition when she's in the tornado and you see
Oh yeah.
Elmira Gluck, whatever her horrible name is, like riding the bike through the windstorm and then turning
Hmm.
into a witch.
Yep.
I don't know if that's confirmed or denied, but in my heart of hearts, this is definitely a Wizard of Oz reference.
I've always thought that.
Okay. A more obvious one is in You've Got Mail. They literally play Somewhere Over the Rainbow,
Hmm.
or a different rendition of it, but the song is there.
Yeah.
That's at the end, right? Over the credits, or as the
Yes, I
credits
believe
start.
so. Hmm.
Another direct one is when they just gave Neo the pill and they're like tying him up to the computers to get his location in the real world. And it's right before he kind of wakes up in his goo as they're like hooking him up to the computers. Cypher says something along the lines of like, "Hold on, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye bye,"
Hmm.
and that's silly and dumb.
Yeah. Hmm.
But there it is, and not really in any of the movies. But when I was trying to research if there were other references that I might have missed, the actress in Beyond the Lights, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, apparently
Hmm.
had one of her first roles, leading roles. She had played Dorothy in a stage production at like 11 years old.
Oh, nice.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I definitely didn't know that one. It's hard for me, like I said, to watch The Wizard of Oz just like as any other movie because I feel like, I don't know, there's almost like this mythology, and then
Right.
you're like, this is where it all started, but it's also still like, in many ways, like a silly old movie. So it's
Hmm.
kind of like, I don't know, I'd rather just like watch Wicked.
Yeah. I,
Sorry.
I, again, I didn't make the movie. I'm not offended.
Okay.
I didn't have it on my list, but we did talk about Moulin Rouge. I wouldn't put it up there with the lady on the bike ghost, but I still think that, to me, um, why do I can't think of that character's name in Moulin Rouge? The guy who owns it,
Oh,
um,
Harold.
Harold.
Or,
Harold, like when you see him at first during the big song and dance number, like he's just, to me, he looks like the mayor of Munchkinland. The rosy cheeks, the facial hair, the oddly shaped top hat and tails.
yeah,
I don't know if that was what it was supposed to be, but that's what my brain picked up on. That's why I didn't put it on the list, but it works for me. I just don't think it was intentional, but it
right.
could have been. I don't know.
I always think that too, like, because especially the first time we see him, he's like dressed up for a stage performance.
Yeah.
So he's wearing like makeup, like the rosy cheeks, and everything's done up more. Yeah, I totally understand that. Do you want to get into the actors we see more than once?
Yeah, you mean us building a Back Through the Lens universe?
Yeah, sure.
Like a la Marvel style? Unintentionally, I believe.
Unintentionally.
Maybe some of them were intentional. Uh, Groundhog's Day maybe was oh, we've seen Bill Murray, let's do this one again. But also February and my argument for rom com that kind of worked. But so there's that. There's one. Bill Murray is in two of our picks. We had him,
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters 2, and Groundhog's Day.
Hmm.
Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day.
Arguably playing the same character, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he
Just
mostly plays
being
Bill
Bill
Murray.
Murray.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least in that era of Bill Murray. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Which also though Harold Ramis, same two
Hmm.
movies. He's a
Hmm.
smaller role. He's like the neurologist or whatever in Groundhog Day, and I believe he also directed it.
Hmm.
So a little added bonus there. We get Lawrence or Larry Fishburne in Boys in the Hood and The Matrix, obviously. Then we get some kind of lesser known actors, or some of them are kind of extra roles, and I think those are more fun. Like
Yeah.
when I saw the list of movies that we were picking through the season, like, oh, that's obviously Bill Murray, that's
Hmm.
Fishburne in two movies. But then
Hmm.
these little ones were kind of fun. I think we talked about it in episode 2 for Valentine's Day, but in Groundhog's Day, in The Wedding Singer, and I don't know the actress' name. She has a small role, but in Groundhog Day, she runs the B&B,
Hmm.
and she in The Wedding Singer was like the owner of that photography shop that Robbie goes to.
Yeah, a very small but I think memorable role in The Wedding Singer because she lists all those couples that you know are going to be together forever that ended up getting divorced.
Right. Also in The Wedding Singer, or sorry, also in Groundhog Day, I apologize. There was the two guys from the bowling alley, the heavier set gentleman that they're in the car with. He decides that they don't need to play by rules anymore, and they go on this high speed chase. And
Oh yeah, and they kind of like just ropes those bowlers into it.
yeah, because he has to drive because they're too drunk. He's
Hmm.
also in The Wedding Singer when Robbie's heartbroken and being mean to everybody at the next wedding
Hmm.
he does. I think he calls him the fat guy that wants to just get to the cake cutting. So
Yes.
a much
The
smaller role in that movie. He doesn't even talk. He just like kind of nods his head, like, "Yes, I do want cake."
yeah, he's just like, yeah, right.
You had pointed out the actor that played the mayor's assistant in Ghostbusters 2 is also
Hmm.
Russell in Wayne's World.
Yes, the guy who I guess we assume he's the mayor's assistant. We weren't sure what else to call him, but he's the one who's responsible for getting the Ghostbusters locked up in the asylum.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and takes all their equipment away. And then non actors, but it was funny when we did the Disney episode that both of our picks were directed by the same directors, like two of them, which, and they're
Hmm.
not like brothers or sisters or family, as far as I
Right.
know. But yeah, Ron Clements and John Musker directed both those movies. I kind of would, if I looked into it more, I probably would venture that they might have done more in that Renaissance era. It seems like that's what
Probably.
Disney does.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's always funny to me that like my end of the year wrap up for Letterboxd, my most watched directors are typically ones I'm not really familiar with, and it's because they're people like these guys who have directed Disney movies or like random animated movies that, you know, I'm watching all the time with my son. So like these are always my most watched directors because they usually, you know, become part of the company.
Hmm. Yeah. Non actors to directors to not humans. Uh, the lovely Statue of Liberty makes two appearances.
I think my argument here is the Statue of Liberty had a very prominent role in Ghostbusters 2,
Oh,
and
definitely.
but arguably also in past lives because Nora and Hae Sung go to see the Statue of Liberty together. Obviously, we're supposed to kind of relate this to Nora being an immigrant, but also it leads to kind of an argument with her husband because she went to see this
Hmm.
with her friend and not her husband, and he had like never been to the Statue of Liberty before. So it's at least a catalyst for moving some weirdness in the plot along,
I'll take
moving
it.
everyone's feelings along.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
They didn't talk about Statue of Liberty and You've Got Mail, did they? No,
I don't
I don't
think
think so.
so.
I don't think so.
No, I think it's that whole cliche that I mentioned about like when we talked about past lives that when you live in the city, you don't really go see like the tourist spots. Yeah, I don't think there are too many big like because You've Got Mail is all like about the Upper West Side.
That's true.
It's all
Yeah.
about kind of like that neighborhood in particular.
The last thing I had was not really a repeat of actors, but kind of a fun connection.
Hmm.
Val Kilmer in Kill the Irishman, Nicole Kidman in Moulin Rouge. I mean, we both mentioned in the separate movie picks
Hmm.
that we both remember them from Batman Forever.
Yeah.
That's definitely how I think I remember seeing Nicole Kidman for the first time.
I know that's when I first became aware of Val Kilmer.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this because Val Kilmer passed away after we recorded the episode with Kill the Irishman. Obviously, Val Kilmer's been in a lot of things, and I know Batman Forever is not like his best role, but I always thought of him as Batman because when I was a kid, he was Batman. And I saw that before I saw anything else like Top Gun or
Sure.
anything.
Yeah,
So,
it's fair.
yeah, he was Batman to me. Same with Michael Keaton
Oh yeah, for sure.
because I watched that first Batman movie a lot too.
Yeah.
Like again, not saying this was good. Also, Drew Barrymore was in Batman Forever.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, forgot about
She's
that.
Sugar.
We might have to rewatch that. It's been such a long time since I've seen that. No one said
So,
we have to watch all good movies.
I like Batman Forever. It's fun. It You go from the Tim Burton movies, and it's
Hmm.
kind of in between that style, and then you
Hmm.
before you get to Batman and Robin, which is definitely way more over the top than Batman Forever. But you kind of see the change in tone. It's definitely more cartoony, comic booky, on the
Yeah.
silly side of comic book, I should say. And as a kid, I just liked Batman, but also Jim Carrey was like hitting every stride. And when I found out he was gonna be the Riddler, I'm
Hmm.
like, well, I'm
Hmm.
sold. I don't even care who Batman is anymore.
Yeah. Speaking of people who were a big part of our childhood, like,
Yeah.
geez. Like, yeah, I remember that being such a big deal that Jim Carrey was going to be in the next Batman movie. And yeah, also, I was a kid. Like, my brother and I didn't care if this movie was good or not. Like,
No.
also, like, Batman movies were just such a thing when we were kids.
Yeah.
I feel like I was never into comics or superheroes or anything, but I was into Batman. Do you remember, like, Mask of the Phantasm, that movie?
Oh yeah. I
My
think I have
brother
it on
had that. We
DVD.
watched it all the time. Yeah.
I had the collectible little glass cups from Burger King for Batman Forever.
Oh,
They're
I
probably
remember those.
somewhere. I don't know. I don't know if I still
Somewhere.
have them, but I had them at one point.
That's funny. Did you see the meme going around that was like an old Trivial Pursuit question that was like, which of these actors have never played Batman? But because it was so long ago, actually every actor that was a choice has played Batman now.
That's
Because
awesome.
like Ben Affleck was one of the choices, and I think he would have been the answer at the time.
At the time, yeah.
But now he's played Batman, so yeah. Did you want to talk about other stuff we had to edit out, or do we not?
Oh yeah. We both have dogs, and dogs do what dogs do. And if a dog walks by on a walk, or the mailman, or Amazon, it's a lot of pausing and muting for interruptions.
Mhm.
Again, it's kind of more funny now talking about it, but man, when you're trying to record an episode, it's a pain in the ass.
My dog doesn't like people walking by the house. So anytime someone's out on a walk, gotta bark about it.
Yeah,
But
dogs do what dogs do.
we had some days where we were felt like we were pausing like every few minutes to let the dogs bark.
Hmm. I've learned to sequester
Sequester.
my dogs upstairs via a folding chair at the top of the steps, just so they can just chill and like take a nap.
Yeah, that
Because they
wouldn't
probably get
work.
confused that they hear me talking to what is nobody because they can't hear you.
Yeah,
They just get very curious.
that's true. Did I ever tell you about when my dog was younger? She tried to attack a yoga app I was using because she heard me, or she heard the app talking to me, and she like
Yes.
bolted down the stairs and like attacked my tablet.
Yeah. That's insane.
Well, she is insane. So-
A funny but annoying at the time during editing was your son had a toy buried somewhere in the house that would go off periodically as we were trying to record.
It was Sky's helicopter from Paw Patrol.
Uh,
It kept going off and making like a helicopter noise, and could not find it, couldn't we assumed it was buried under stuff and like, a button was being pushed on constantly. Halfway through the episode, I believe, I dug it out, but then it was still going off, and I
Hmm.
thought I was just gonna have to, like, throw it out of the house, like, I didn't know what to do. I put it, like, on another floor, just, like, as far away as I could figure, because I also couldn't see any reasonable, like, thing to take out batteries or whatever. If you are someone who watched Friends, I very much felt like Phoebe in that episode where the smoke detector won't stop going off. And then the firefighters come and they fix it, and then as soon as they leave, it starts going off again. Like, that's how I felt when I was able to pull it out, thinking everything was cool, and then it just was sitting right next to me, still going off constantly. And then poor you having to edit around that.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time, I think it was lucky enough that it was when I was talking a lot and you would just mute and I would keep going. But
Hmm.
there were times that I didn't. I just realized now, though, it's kind of funny. I didn't know it was a Paw Patrol toy, so it's another dog related interruption, I
Oh,
guess.
yeah. Arguably, yeah. I think it's funny that, when things run late or we're saying we have technical difficulties, it's like sometimes it's for real life things, like real tech issues. Sometimes it's because we had to edit out too many helicopter noises.
Real or otherwise. Yeah,
Yeah.
because sometimes we'll get planes over my house.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, too, it's just us pausing because we hear them and they don't end up on the take, which is still, I got to edit that out anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So, whoops.
You had a note about
Hmm.
shut up.
I didn't have to say
Um
anything. It worked.
yeah. I don't know if any of you have noticed, there's usually a little blooper or a little bit that Joe adds into the very end of our episodes. And usually it involves something something that Joe has said that takes us very off course, and it takes us a while to get back. Now I'm breaking you.
It's just funny that you're just blaming me too. I just want to say I appreciate episode one, the protein packs, and we kept most of that in. I mean, I cut out like the 5 minutes of laughter, but that you're like, nope, screw it. I'll take it on the chin and we'll see what happens. And then ever since then, I was like, all right, I'm going to try to. It's usually something you say that I kind of give back to you, and kind of I've been calling it breaking Rachel, and seeing if I could do at least once an episode, even if I don't use the take. It's just fun to do for me.
Hmm.
But then I
um
do get yelled at, like, this is why it takes so long to do this. I will admit that is my fault.
I have had multiple people message me telling me that they thought the protein packs part was so funny, and or they love that I left it in. So you're welcome, everyone. Happy to be of service.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you didn't know, there are little Easter eggs at the end of every episode. You can go back and listen to everything all over again. I think to wrap this up, I just wanted to touch on like some favorites of ours throughout the season. Personal favorite performances. For me, I have to have Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks up there because I feel like maybe that's my favorite movie. Like, I don't know. I just like I love them in that movie so much. Peter McNichol and Ghostbusters 2. I'm totally blanking on his character's name now.
Janosch.
Janosch. Duh. Yeah. Also, Minnie Driver as Noni's mom in Beyond the Lights. I feel like her performance in particular inspired a lot more conversation than I was expecting,
Yeah.
just because of the layers of it. Even I had people commenting after they watched, or actually after they listened to that episode, like specifically commenting on Noni's mom to
Yeah.
me. And
I
also, I
thought
think
she
it.
was a stronger,
Mhm.
like, character, at least as far as performance. Like, I remember talking about it in the episode. I wanted more of Noni and her mom than Noni and Kaz.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, though, that it's almost like the more interesting relationship dynamic is between Noni and her mom, but it's supposed to be a romance.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
fair. I liked all of those when we talked about Meg Ryan. and Drew Barrymore, especially like their they each have like a specific scene I'm thinking of at the end of their respective movies that they really kind of give it their all, and I think it's really good.
Hmm.
For me, besides the ones you mentioned, I like John. Well, first of all, I always like John Cusack, but I really like him in High Fidelity because he's typically like a fan favorite, lovable character in movies for the most part, and he's so good at like just every time you see Rob doing something stupid, like oh my god, and John Cusack just does it so well because he's still kind of like a lovable asshole.
Yes. Hmm.
The entire Boys in the Hood cast,
Yes.
I feel like it's just they all went on to do other things. It's just so believable, so raw.
Hmm.
And I like Ray Stevenson in Kill the Irishman because I see him in so many other things. And this one, granted, he's got the mustache and a different haircut, and it's different time period, so clothing is different. But it takes me a minute to like realize it's the same actor I've seen in other things. He
Hmm.
just I don't know. He just besides the hair and mustache, but he just physically seems different to me. Like he's putting
Hmm.
on this bigger performance.
How about movies you saw for the first time during this season? Anything that surprised you? Anything you liked more than you expected to?
Hmm. Um. I guess when I'm going into these movies, I didn't. I try not to if I haven't seen it before, like I'm not going to like this movie because I feel like that means I'm already not going to like it. Like get inside your own
Mm,
head
yeah.
type deal. That being said, we definitely have I don't know stereotypical movies that we like. I know half of the season, I if not all the season, did every movie you pick was that somehow a rom com? No, it can't be.
Rude.
Well, They're
Saying this because
they're
I'm a lady.
no. I, it's because you're Rachel and you like rom coms.
You know what? Looking at my list, fair.
See, okay. Uh,
Just giving you a hard time.
That being said, I was surprised maybe with the older movies because if you haven't seen a movie from a certain era with 2025 eyes, it is going to be different.
Yeah.
But still, kind of, I like The Apartment. There's things about Quiet Man I overall liked. Like I didn't hate the movie. In fact, the silliness actually kind of made me like it more because like we can laugh at it.
I get that, yeah.
Um, but the cinematography was nice. The setting in Ireland was beautiful.
Mhm.
I knew nothing about Past Lives, and I think that might have been my biggest surprise because at least the other ones, even though I've never seen them or heard about them before, I kind of had a vague idea. This was
Mhm.
surprising. Definitely loved all the shot choices and the lack of dialogue. So the acting was really strong without a lot of words on paper.
Mhm.
And I would say, like, I guess if you have to say which ones you liked, maybe ones you don't like, there was nothing I didn't like. I
Mhm.
would say maybe if I had to pick, like Beyond the Lights was my least favorite, but
Mhm.
I liked a lot of the performances. I liked you already mentioned Minnie Driver. I thought the Gugu Mbatha Raw. I remember talking about this in an episode, or if I didn't, I had it in my notes. Like, surprised I've never seen her before because she seems like a superstar.
Yeah, she's, like, so watchable.
Yeah, but just the story itself was like, meh, okay.
Mhm.
I didn't. Kaz's character was. I didn't like I said. I didn't really care too much about that aspect. I mean, it was obviously the point of the movie, but I wanted more of her and her mom. I thought that was a better dynamic.
Yeah.
They were all good. I liked all of them to some extent. I just if I had to pick out of your picks I haven't seen before, Past Lives would probably be my favorite. Yeah, the
Mhm.
Light's my least favorite, but still watchable, and I enjoyed them all
Nice.
to some degree.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's anything you picked that I was like, "Oh my god, why is Joe making me watch this?" But, I'd say out of things I had never seen before, Boys in the Hood was definitely my favorite, like,
Nice.
new to me movie. I mean, I had a lot of fun with Wayne's World, like, more so than I expected, because like, I think we touched on that in the episode that I just kinda expected it to, like, be too dumb for me to find funny, which is how I feel a lot of about a lot of the, like, SNL movies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad saying Kill the Irishman was probably the one that fell flat for me. I still enjoyed it, and I feel like just being from Cleveland and, like, learning all that history was personally very interesting, and the cast is amazing, but some of it just felt so cheesy to me the way like, truly all I can think of is the scene where they kill Art, and he's like, "I
Uh-huh.
told you to stop gambling, Art."
That's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
But
Um,
wait, refresh my memory. Where is that movie set at?
oh, in Cleveland, Ohio, on the shores of Lake Erie?
Ah, yes, yes, The Shores of Lake Erie.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
The ugliest man on the shores of Lake Erie. The most violent criminal on the Lake Erie shores.
Have you
No one
heard of
talks like
Cleveland Mafia Boss?
yeah. He's the most dangerous mafia boss in Cleveland, Cleveland, Ohio, and Cuyahoga County on the shores of Lake Erie. Yeah, so obviously some of the writing in Kill the Irishman fell flat for me.
Yeah.
But also, like I have said from the beginning, no one talks like this.
Mm-mm.
Like, I'm not sure if I've ever seen a movie that's so, like, definitely wanted to make sure you did not forget where this movie was set. That's
Yeah.
all I could think of my whole time watching it. But again, worth seeing. Glad I saw it. I learned a lot. My husband calls me a big dork for it, but I like when I can learn a lot.
Why not? Yeah.
I like history.
Entertainment and education.
There you go. For me personally, too, I had not seen Gladiator probably since it first came out, and that was just like a fun rewatch. I did not remember a lot of it, and I think I was surprised at how well it held up for me because I
Mhm.
was going back into it expecting sort of like an Oscar bait historical epic, which like maybe you could still say it is, but I enjoyed it so much more than I don't know, something like Braveheart or Dances with Wolves
Right.
that kind of traditional historic Oscar bait, I guess. Any other particular things you were surprised by? Personal surprises?
All the singing that happened in various picks that the actors themselves did was nice. Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor,
Mhm.
Moulin Rouge. If I'm not mistaken, did Martha Ross sing at least some songs?
She did
Okay.
all her own singing, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah, that was surprising. I mentioned it in the Moulin Rouge episode, but like just John Leguizamo, I love him as like a character actor.
Mhm.
And it's been so long since I've seen that movie, I didn't recognize him at first because he's playing someone who was much shorter and he had prosthetics on his face and like crazy bohemian facial hair, so it all kind of hit
Mhm.
him very well. But then they did a close up, like I had to pause. I'm like, no way. So I thought that was kind of cool because he also had like a accent and a lisp, and I
Mhm.
don't know, he does fun roles.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think for me, you had mentioned this already, but like because we had to watch these so closely and take notes, you kind of discover little things that maybe you would have missed just casually viewing. And like I said, you mentioned this already, but Drew Barrymore and Meg Ryan actually showing a lot of range for a rom-com, like maybe more so than you think when you just are like, I'm sitting down to watch a rom-com.
Yeah,
And it's so funny to me because I've always thought of The Apartment as like it's sort of a rom-com. Obviously, it takes a much more dramatic turn. But no, it's always funny to me because I usually think of something like The Apartment and Shirley MacLaine's character as being more of a comedic role that turns dramatic. And so it's harder to label that as like a fluff role, if that makes sense, or like the way people kind of dismiss comedies or rom-coms. And I think there's still some truth to that. Like Shirley MacLaine's character like goes through it in The Apartment, but I think in some ways we sort of been selling other types of roles short now that I've had to watch these so closely, I guess.
yeah, but she definitely goes through it, and I think she does a good job as the
Mhm.
actress to kind of give range. And
Mhm.
I love the older movies too, especially the female leads like that have those quick quips and those
Mhm.
like knife daggering like in the ribs insults.
Yeah.
So I think her whole performance in the film I think was good and up and down. And I'm not saying anything negative about Drew Barrymore or Meg Ryan's performances in the entire movie. I think Drew Barrymore does the very typical rom com thing for most of the movie. It is lighthearted and light and casual. And I think Meg Ryan, same thing. But the
Mhm.
very end, they have both have similar like crescendo performances when with Drew
Mhm.
Barrymore on the airplane, Robbie comes
Mhm.
out in the reveal, and at the end where Meg Ryan realizes that the pen pal is Tom Hanks's character,
Mhm.
and they just like have this like physical transformation through emotion when they both realize what's happening.
Mhm. Yeah. Also, Julia Gulia. Never, never gonna not make me crack up.
uh,
Ah, anything that fell flat on rewatches.
Fell flat, or maybe was a little more rough than I remember. I would say, as much as I love his performance of Rob
Yeah.
in High Fidelity, but just like Rob's character, especially like discussing it on the episode or watching it with my wife, who I don't think
Mhm.
likes the movie, and probably because of Rob, which is
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Uh, yeah, it's the language there and treatment of women and dating, and it's a little icky, I guess.
Which it's probably supposed to be a little icky because at least watching this as an older person, I guess I did not realize how much growth there is for Rob in that movie
Hmm.
and how much he needs to change as a person and just also changing in ways to like be a better partner. So it's sort of like excusable because you realize that's like part of the journey. But yes, watching it as an adult who's like had relationship experience now versus like a high schooler was such a different experience.
Yeah, and that says a lot to pick Rob from High Fidelity on in this kind of example of something falling flat when we had just talked about John Ford dragging an actress for like half the movie. Yeah, I feel like this is worse. I don't know.
Well, Quiet Man is on there for things that were at least different than I remembered.
Sure.
Like I had said in that episode, it was always advertised on Turner Classic Movies as like the grand romance and passion and yada yada. And then you watch it and you're like, oh my God, they're so mean to this woman. Like, ugh.
It's
um,
passion.
it's passion. Yeah. The different things that were acceptable in different times, but also just like the way things were viewed or advertised or whatever. Yeah, that one was, I don't know, just like rougher than I
Yeah.
remembered. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I
That's how
was
I
just,
felt watching High Fidelity. Like, oh, I picked this? Oh, she's gonna hate me.
yeah. Yeah, no, when I was rewatching The Quiet Man, I don't remember if you had watched it yet. Maybe you had, but I was just thinking like, oh my God, he's gonna be like, what is wrong with you? Like,
I I don't remember if I thought that. I just like, okay, it's an old movie. Okay, fine. I did think about that for The Apartment when I realized I liked that one. I realized what was going on. It's like, wait a minute, it's a bunch of people having affairs. Like, what is going on here?
kind of racy for an old movie, huh?
I guess so.
I guess. Moulin Rouge was not as magical, maybe, as I remembered, but I was 16 when I first saw it. I think, again, just having gone through this whole season, watching things so closely, comparing and contrasting, I guess I could see more why Moulin Rouge doesn't land for some people or why some people just think it's too silly. And also just, obviously I've watched so many other musicals at this point. I've seen so many other unique takes on things or, to me Moulin Rouge felt so daring at the time. But again, I hadn't like really seen anything else like that. So I think it's just like not the most original thing I've seen anymore. Um,
Right, but I mean, I feel like
but
you
it is
can't.
also kind of silly.
Yeah, I feel like you can't take that away though. It's
Yeah.
for at the time, and it was the catalyst to kind of put
Hmm.
you on a different path. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like you don't have to say it doesn't feel the same way now because it shouldn't. But
Right. But like there are people who really think it's like not good as a musical or like a poor example of a musical or a poor example of a romance. I don't know. And I could sort of see some of the criticism of it as a musical in a way this time, but whatever. I still enjoyed it.
I don't know. I figured
um,
it. it had still the, you know, trifecta romance thing going on, as a
Hmm.
lot of romantic comedies have, and then definitely had big musical numbers. I mean, maybe they weren't original pieces, although I would argue that they are because someone still has to put those all together in a way that
Right.
makes sense, and that's a whole another level of talent. So I don't know. I think it's a fine musical. I'd actually enjoy some of the songs more than other original quote unquote numbers from musicals because it's fun to like pick out parts that you recognize from your favorite rock and roll group or a pop
Hmm.
singer. Like, oh my god, they tied that in. That's so cool.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Well, I will say, You've Got Mail gets a little bit problematic if you think about it too hard, which we've covered.
Yeah,
Um, the whole Tom Hanks maybe a villain, kind of a little bit. Let's just enjoy the rom com.
yeah,
But yeah, I'd say that's it for me in terms of maybe things that didn't hold up. Oh, Russell Brand and forgetting Sarah Marshall. Like, just what has happened to Russell Brand? That's all I'm
yeah,
gonna say about that. Like, it's very jarring kind of now seeing him, but he's also someone who I can't help feeling like is also playing himself. Kind of how
yeah.
we talk about Bill Murray. Like, he's just such a jarring presence now to see, even though I still enjoy that movie a lot.
I feel like that didn't fall flat for me because I've always felt that way about Russell Brand. Like, I don't
Yeah.
like this guy. He doesn't entertain me. He's always like a character that annoys me,
Mm.
and he probably was
Yeah.
playing himself because he's still doing that to me. So,
I think that covered everything.
you have a favorite episode that
Oh,
we've done
yeah.
for whatever reason, whether you like the picks or just whatever.
I had so much fun recording the Irish episode, mostly because you were ridiculous through that whole episode.
That's funny because I have the same pick and for the same reason.
What?
Well, editing it was also fun for me.
Okay.
Some backstory is sometimes I don't always have time to watch all my movies and record and edit to get everything out on time. Or you don't know that because we released episodes. But when recording, sometimes I have to stay up late and watch a pick the night before we record for whatever reason. I work weekends. Sometimes I have my second job at night or whatever. But it's like, okay, sacrifices need to be made. No big deal. I'm going to stay up, watch a movie, which means I go to bed late. Then I wake up early to record and I'm sleepy,
You're a little
and I just
punchy.
yeah, and I have a little coffee in me. Let's go time. And then it's like kind of like mentioning the protein pack thing. It's like if I say something kind of silly or ridiculous, and I see a crack in Rachel's seriousness, I kind of like chip away at it and see how far I can go. And I had people texting me about what this random stuff I was saying in the Irish episode. Like, oh my god, I was dying. You talked about John Ford's nipples. And see, that's called breaking Rachel. But you can't see
Um,
she almost spit coffee across her living room.
it's funny though you mentioned that part because what I always think of is when you were like, "Who's the quiet man? Not this guy."
That's the special part at the end. Yeah, if anyone was listening, that was the part I cut out and saved for the after the end song, the outro.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we were fully recording yet. I think we are just starting to talk about the quiet man, and I had said something dumb, and you were like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Who's got two thumbs? Not going to be quiet? This guy."
Well,
Or
because
something dumb like that. I don't know.
yeah, and I said something like, "Oh my god, we've barely talked about anything," and you're like, "We've talked about corned beef. It's fine."
Oh yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah, I was on one for that episode.
Things got real stereotypical that episode.
To
Oh
be
man.
fair, the picks also kind of like I leaned into the silly, like with the Quiet Man was just silly, and I leaned into that with being sleep deprived and caffeinated.
Hmm.
So it just kind of helped. I will give my performance in that episode an assistant to the Quiet Man's silliness.
I feel like both of those picks ended up being kind of silly for like different reasons. Because, like I said, I
Hmm.
felt that Kill the Irishman was a little like melodramatic at times.
I told you not to gamble. That is such a bad line, though.
It's such a bad line.
It's like we all
Um,
know it. We all know it. Just don't say it. Don't say. Ah, he said it.
We have to drive the point home. See, this is where things like past lives, you really appreciate the showing and not telling.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
realize with every movie and every instance, you sometimes you need a narration or whatever. Doesn't always work, but that was just such a glaring example of like you're really speaking too much about this. I kind of feel bad because I had like a lot of fun recording all of this, and I can't think of anything specific to say about anything else. But I think Irish episode was definitely a standout. This wasn't, I guess, part of the recording, but when I was watching Boys in the Hood, I obviously was trying to like find a private area of my house. So I wasn't like, watching this in front of my kid. And it was a weekend. I was watching it in my husband's office on the tablet, and the whole sequence with Ricky getting shot, that's something too. Like, I don't know how I went so long not getting spoiled. I had a feeling that's what was coming, but still, that whole sequence, obviously, I was sucked in. I was, so horrified. I was like, "Oh my god, this character I've like come to love so much." Like I really was into it. Apparently that whole last sequence like starting with the red car showing up, my husband had thrown out his back in the other room, and I did not realize because I was so sucked into Boys in the Hood and like crying over Ricky that I did not realize my husband was like calling for help in the other room.
Jesus.
So
Sacrifices we make for the podcast.
sacrifices we make, yeah. So unfortunately now, anytime I rewatch that, when Ricky dies, I'm also gonna be thinking about my husband throwing out his back.
Oh God.
Yeah. I think my son eventually had to run upstairs and be like, "Daddy really needs you. He's yelling for you." And I had headphones in too, because that's part of like me trying to not expose my kid to this stuff, right? Like I,
Yeah.
watch it with headphones in, so I really couldn't hear anything. But then also it was like that was probably the movie where I wanted to like sit with it for a little bit. Like I
Hmm.
was so emotional after that ending, and then like I had to go help my husband. But no, because nothing else had like an ending that affected me that hard. And when you look at our
Yeah.
picks, that probably makes sense.
Yeah, that was a tough ending out of
Hmm.
all the picks. I believe that was
It's okay.
probably the most emotionally stirring
Hmm.
one, yeah.
And that's probably like the hardest episode to record too.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't have too much else that was super memorable right off the top of my head, other than like protein packs, which again, you're all very welcome for that. Um, I do remember it being like, God, it's the first episode. People are gonna think I'm so dumb, but
Well, I think I did a good job of overshadowing your quote unquote dumbness by just leaning into it and being ridiculous because I like did a whole like bit where I was the Ghostbusters eating protein packs and getting all jacked up for
Jesus,
yeah. So I like
that
yeah. So I think I try to take the ball and run with it a little
run
bit.
with it.
Hopefully, I don't know who you had a slip of the tongue. I just am a silly human, and I think I might have covered that up for you.
I do remember during our discussion of Gladiator, I got really overwhelmed discussing one of the battle scenes, and you had to be like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
I think you cut it though. And speaking of things that affected us, like I couldn't even talk about that part where his like wife and son are killed, and then they like sort of are trash talking him
Oh yeah,
later and bring it up again.
that was rough.
Yeah, I did not enjoy that. Maybe we're just not built for serious films, at least for this
Season 2,
podcast.
all Batman. This is probably enough.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, because as we were sitting here, like talking about Batman, I was like, "Oh, there's that Robert Pattinson Batman movie that I like totally forgot about." And the two were Ben Affleck as Batman, too, maybe,
Mm,
maybe more.
like one and a partial.
Okay. I mean, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Outside of we have some thank yous.
Hmm.
We made it through a whole season,
We did.
but with a little help. So, first and foremost, everyone who's listened to this podcast, definitely our family and friends who have been super supportive from the very beginning. Anyone who just happened to stumble upon us and is still listening, we really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for the support. We do want to thank Peter Tillip and LPV Productions. You can contact LPV for live streaming and podcast production at lpvproductions.com. And last but not least, for me, our very patient, incredible spouses. I think it's safe to say season 1 took up a lot more time than we expected.
Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't have been able to do it without the two of them kind of holding down the fort when we needed it.
Yeah, and just also the support, listening to rough cuts or just listening to the episodes in general and like, oh, I really like that. That was really cool. And just affirmation goes a long way sometimes.
Words of affirmation.
Mm-hmm. So on top of that, I'd also want to again thank Tom, Matt, and BDA for their feedback. Tom can be contacted at tomfaraci.com or at tomfaraciart on Instagram for any caricature needs or graphic design. When we were kind of getting this started, kind of pre-production, my friends Jake Q and L Dog for some guidance and advice. And Kevin's Dork Den on Instagram likes to share our stories when we have new episodes up. Never asked him to do it. He just is a good brother. Thanks, brother, for doing that. That's all I got.
All right. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on our first season. You can find us on Instagram at Back Through the Lens Pod and on Facebook at Back Through the Lens. You can also email us at backthroughthelenspodcast@gmail.com. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. It's the best way to support our show.
If you enjoyed our show today, please give us a like and follow for updates on new and future episodes. Our show is produced by our hosts, Rachel Campbell and myself, Joe Siomek, with additional help and support from Peter Telep of LPV Productions. Peter, Rachel, and I are also the executive producers. Our awesome logo is brought to you by Tom Faraci, and our wonderful theme song is by Matt Tarek. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more trips into our movie-watching past on Back Through the Lens. Stay tuned, season 2.
Yeah. Maybe we should have said something about that.
I almost said Tower of Terror again. That's why I had to stop and think, like, that's not right.